City of Stevens Point Public Policy and General Government Committee meeting, recorded May 12, 2025.
It is 6 o'clock. I will call to order the Public Policy and General Government Committee. Clerk Pagel, would you please call roll?
Keemer.
Here.
Burr. Here. Steinmetz.
Here.
Lang.
Here.
Boozy.
Here.
Okay, very good. Moving on to item 2, our license list. There are...
Hang on 1 second. Tiffany, you can't bring those in.
Where can we sit?
Right here. There's 2 empty seats here. There's 3 empty seats on that side, 2 in the middle. It's fire code. Sorry. We have just 49 seats in here. I wouldn't normally care, but the fire chief is sitting right there. I apologize.
That's all right. We will move on to item 2, our license list. We have 2 change of agents. Our store at U.S. Highway 10 East and Hilltop Pub. And then we have a Class B beer license for Cheese and Cheers Bistro. That's beginning July 1st, 2025. A Class B beer and liquor license for Michele's on Division Street beginning May 20th of this year. A temporary Class B beer license for St. Joseph for their parish picnic, which will be held on June 7th and June 8th this year. And a temporary Class B beer and Class B wine license for the Portage County Democratic Party, which will be holding their annual picnic on August 24th at the Pfiffner building at 425 Franklin Street. I think we can take all of those items together. Is there a motion?
And move approval.
All right, we have a first by Lang,
Second.
a second by Steinmetz. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion from the committee regarding those changes and licenses?
Do we have any concerns from law enforcement on any of these?
No concerns.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the audience or online? And seeing none, all those in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed would be no, and that passes unanimously. We have one request to hold an event. That's the Riverfront Jazz Festival, which is a recurring event that's been held for many years. This year on August 30th and 31st.
Move to approve.
We have a first by Burr,
Second.
a second by Boosie. Any question, comments, discussion from the committee?
It's always a good time.
Yeah. All right, very good. Any question, comments from the audience or online? Chief?
We are requesting contractual officers for that because of the size of the event as well, but they are aware of it.
Okay, very good. I did note that in the packet. All right, so we have a first and a second. All those in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Number 4 is an ordinance amendment, creation of 8.21 camping on city property prohibited, and creation of a portion of subsection 24.27 Exhibit A schedule of cash deposits. There is no need to take action on this tonight. I will let the committee know. I see this as the beginning of a conversation. I know we have a lot of people who want to speak to this, and I guess I would just ask that you keep your minutes to 3 minutes, or keep your comments to 3 minutes, and just be polite and cordial, and yeah, state your name and your address. But before we go to public comment, I think the mayor and the police chief do have some information to share regarding this ordinance.
Sure, we drew straws, and it looks like the chief and I are going to be presenting this, although it's been a topic of discussion administratively for off and on for the better part of a year and a half, 2 years now. And it happens to, the concerns get raised predominantly in spring. Once the warming center closes, the warming center, as you know, operates from November 1st to April 1st. And then there's really no place for people to go. That has a tendency to create problems, and we've got a little slideshow with some of the concerns. I'm going to warn everybody in advance, especially those younger people. Some of these may be very graphic. So just so you are aware, there's yeah, it's, I don't even know good words. It's graphic. So if that's not something you want the children to see, you may want to step out for a little bit. Same for those who are watching at home even later. We're going to go through these. And so again, these are some of the complaints and concerns that we've gotten over the years, predominantly, again, this last year that kind of brought it to a head. Talking about people sleeping in doorways. Oops, that's not how I want to do that. This one talks about poop and things like that. Here's another one. Talks about as far back as the Halloween parade, kids, 2 little girls, 5 and 6 years old, profanity. We've had complaints about dogs fighting, people getting yelled at, general just degradation of the downtown. These are all available if someone wants to see them. The PowerPoint will be available for anybody who asks for it. Because of the graphic nature, we probably won't post it. But see, these are some of the pictures that have been taken just this past year. Sleeping in doorways. This one actually is blocking off whatever is going on behind there. This cardboard is in the public right-of-way in the sidewalk, impairing people's abilities to get through. This is the alley by the library, to the point where they even have a dartboard set up. Art, I don't know what this is. Again, pictures that we've received from various sources. Clothing hanging on signs. This is the old Journal building, which is now runs a nonprofit, runs out of there. The former Gruba Jeweler building downtown. Franciscans, you can see, I'm not sure what's in any of these things, but they are definitely on the sidewalk, impairing that ability. This was right before the Easter egg hunt this year. These are just examples of things that have been seen. This is the alley between, this is Midstate on my right and the Journal building on the left. Alleyway, vandalism, doorway. Nobody's there, and all of this trash, food, everything is sitting there. This is what we believe to be human urine in front of the companion shop. Someone was sleeping there, and the witness reported that she got up and squatted, and it ran right down the entryway of the companion shop into the sidewalk that everybody else is going to be using for walking their dogs, visiting downtown, hitting the farmer's market. They didn't have the ability to clean it off, so they eventually threw water on it. Human feces, right downtown, off to the side. And we've had reports of diapers, adult diapers thrown in the street, thrown in next to garbage cans, not even in the garbage cans. And these created concerns. The property owners, the business owners, citizens are contacting my office, I assume contacting the alderpersons, the police department, city staff, saying what can be done. There's a lot of groups that are working on things, and many of them are here tonight. But trespassing on private property is illegal. If you don't have permission from the property owners, it's illegal. There was a camp on the west side on private property, and the owners were corporate. They didn't mind. Was it last year? I think it was last year. There was a big storm that rolled through and damaged a lot of the tents, the sleeping bags, and they just left everything. On that private property where the owners hadn't said anything, there were damaged tents, sleeping bags, garbage, human feces, and they left it. At that point, the owners of the property said, listen, we hadn't cared up until this point, but they're not respecting the property and their right to use it or their ability to use it. So they said, we don't want them there anymore. Where do they go? We're trying to figure out locations. We had many of the unsheltered were sleeping in the downtown area last year and this year. We had portable toilets installed. That's something nobody should have to see or deal with, especially downtown. So we put portable toilets up there. The chief, myself, our community resource officer spoke to everybody and said, listen, we're putting these here for your use. Take care of them. If they're not taken care of, we're going to have to pull them. Twice I got contacted from the porta potty owner saying that they had vandalized the porta potties. Ripping off the toilet seats, stole the hand sanitizers, rubbing feces on the wall, and her employees had to clean it up. After the second time, we pulled it. I mean, nobody should have to deal with that. And I want to be very clear that, we'll get to that in a second. Some people have even been turned away from shelters because of the behavior levels and their intoxication. It's not everyone, and I don't want to give the impression that this stigma is a blanket that covers anyone or everyone from one group of people. There are a few bad apples that give a bad impression to everybody. And that's common with every single group that we have. The concerns that come from business owners, property owners, visitors, residents of the city. I got a call from a woman whose daughter worked downtown, and when she closed the restaurant, she had to walk 2 blocks to where she lived, and was frequently whistled at and had comments being made from people who were sitting on the streets. She was concerned for her daughter's safety. We can't have that. So the point here is that it's affecting everyone, including those who are unsheltered. Many of them are getting a bad reputation from the few who are causing the problems. The frequent user issues on city property have been abandoned property, trash, vandalism, and creating those unhealthy areas that we saw in some of those photos, which can attract rodents. But there are resources available, and I printed out some flyers. The police chief had put these together. Are these available online?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. So we have a couple of copies here. We can hand them out to the committee members, anybody from the public who wants them. Of all of the resources that are available, we've got double-sided here based on whatever services you happen to need that are available and have been available for quite some time. The police department does a very good job of getting people to services, as do all of the groups represented here tonight that work with the unsheltered population. Getting them the resources that they need is not an issue. Several people choose not to use those services, and that can lead to some other problems. Again, this behavior is not representative of all unsheltered people. Safe and responsible alternatives must accompany this proposal. When we talked about this internally, we can't just say, you can't be here. You can't be here, you can't be here. All you're doing is pushing the problem around, smearing paint. So we need to be able to have options. And we'll talk about a few of those tonight. But we also need some tools in the tool belt to help deal with the ones that will not fall under those options. Several groups, including the city, are working on solutions. One Big Tent, Transact Hope, Monroe House, ECI, Salvation Army, and others. And I apologize, I know I'm missing some, because there are lots of people all working towards the same goal, helping different facets of the problem.
Can I jump in now?
Absolutely, Chief, sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to jump in because this is not a law enforcement issue, but we are the ones that get called downtown for this issue all of the time. It's not illegal to be unhoused, and I've said that from day one since I became chief. And we have a crisis intervention officer, Mike Radzik, who goes downtown every single day, speaks to these individuals that are unhoused, provides resources for them, and helps some of them get on their feet. Some just absolutely refuse any resources whatsoever, and they choose to live the way that they do. Now, after we get all of these individuals who call us and complain, it's definitely not fair to the business owners downtown. They're losing business because of this. It's not fair to the citizens who call up and say, I'm not going to bring my child down there because they're afraid of the unhoused. It's not fair to the city at all. And so what we needed to do is I needed to look at where the deficiencies were. And so I contacted Fond du Lac, I contacted La Crosse, and I contacted Wausau. Now, in the winter, some of you probably don't know, when it's really, really cold, the shelter at Frame Memorial closes at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then the individuals have to leave Frame Memorial, but another resource doesn't open up until 9 o'clock. So then they basically go downtown with all their equipment, and they go into the foyers again and kind of cause the issues that they've caused the entire time. On those really cold days, we called in my officer, and Officer Radzig went and sat at the warming shelter so that they could stay there until 8:30 in the morning. Well, guess what? Those days we didn't have any issues. And so our deficiency here in the city is the fact that we don't have a shelter that's 365 days a year. If we can get that, I think we can solve a lot of our issues. And the other thing is I would increase the time for those to not close at 6 o'clock in the morning, but to stay open until 8 or 8:30 in the morning. Now, I think it's going to be financially that they can't do it. And so when I reached out to all these other agencies, in 2024, the Supreme Court ruled that you can put in a camping ordinance within your city. It's not a violation of anybody's rights. It was voted 6-3 in favor of doing these ordinances. And so it was me who sent all this paperwork to Logan Beverage, and so I don't want everybody getting mad at the mayor, Logan Beverage, saying that they're the ones that are being unfair here. I asked them to develop this ordinance as a tool for us in law enforcement, and I'm going to kind of go over how this tool would be used. So the first thing I need to do is I need to work with Frame Memorial, and I met with them with Assistant Chief Williams last week to find out if they'd actually be able to actually do a shelter for 365 days a year. The answer wasn't no. The answer was they'll talk about it on Tuesday when they have their meeting. So I'm excited about that. The second question is, if they can, we need to reach out to organizations like Evergreen Initiatives, who actually runs that warming shelter throughout the winter, and reach out to them next if Frame Memorial says, yes, we can, to ask them if they're able to actually provide that service 365 days a year. Now, again, it's going to come down to financing. I'm sure money's going to be needed. And that's where I need to hit up the city council, because when I even talked to all those other agencies, they said, listen, this is a city problem. It's not a law enforcement problem. And the city's going to have to come up with some money from somewhere to assist these individuals to help this problem go away. And without the funding, it may not help. But if Frame Memorial comes back and says, yes, we can do 365 days a year, if I reach out to Evergreen Initiatives and they say that they need so much money for funding to do this, I will be coming back to you and asking you for that money, because I think it's that important, especially for the businesses downtown. Now, the ordinance that I'm requesting, there are individuals who have been kicked out of the warming shelter, and believe me, they don't have very many rules. Salvation Army has rules and other shelters have rules. The warming shelter does not. You can be intoxicated, you can do a lot of things there, and they get kicked out. And those are the individuals that I need to deal with, because when they get kicked out, they go downtown and they, again, set up their camp downtown in the business area. Now, we're not talking about hammering these individuals and giving them citations. It'd be progressive discipline. So if somebody actually gets kicked out of the warming shelter and they have an encampment downtown, we'd warn them. It'd be a verbal warning, it might be a written warning, and eventually what it might come down to is a citation. If they receive a citation, I asked Attorney Beveridge to actually put in there a deferral process. So if we give them a pamphlet and we tell them if they reach out to a resource on that pamphlet and they can prove that they are receiving help from one of those resources, that citation goes away. And that is actually part of the ordinance that we're putting in there. And so then it's going to be up to those individuals who are voluntarily being unhoused because they do have a place to stay, but they can't follow the rules. So this ordinance is something that I want in our toolbox eventually, if we can get shelter 365 days a year. And that's a caveat to it. If we can't find something that can house these individuals 365 days a year, citations aren't going to do anything for them. But if we give them opportunities to have some place to obey rules for 8 hours until 8:30 in the morning, and if they get kicked out, there's discipline. I mean, and we need to be able to have that to make sure that these individuals get the resources they need, even if it's anger management, if that's why they get kicked out. But that's kind of the history of the site of the ordinance. And so I just want to throw that in there because, again, this isn't the mayor, this isn't the attorney, this is me that came forward with this, and so people want to be angry about it. I've heard a lot of things on social media that are incorrect because people aren't aware and don't understand what's going on. But this is not fair to the downtown and the citizens on how that looks every single morning.
Thank you, Chief. And it goes beyond that. As I said, it affects everyone. It affects the visitors who come here. It affects the residents. It affects tenants, property owners, and the people that do live here and just happen to be downtown for farmers market or whatever it happens to be. Some of the options that we're working on, as the chief said, are trying to find that 365-day shelter. We've got a few good leads, and a couple of groups have stepped up and said that they could run it. A fair amount of this all comes down to money. The current warming center could stay open 365 days a year. The speed bumps there are funding and staff. The alternative overnight center could open during the non-warming season. So, April 1st through October 31st. Different people running it, different facility, whatever it happens to be. But that's going to need funding and staff as well. Or an alternative overnight camping location could be found. We've had issues, though, in the past with vandalism, and they can be susceptible to bad weather. If it's not an indoor structure, camping outside the entire season isn't really a practical solution. One of the other things that the chief and I had talked about is a fair amount of the people you see downtown are carrying literally everything they own in the world with them. They don't have a choice. You can't keep it at the warming center. Wherever you're staying, you can't keep it when you're out. They have to carry it with them. I can't even imagine what that's like. So something as simple as buying some personal lockers that we could install where people could keep their possessions in a safe environment where they know that someone's not going to steal it or vandalize it or whatever it happens to be, I think would go a long way to helping things look better. But again, it doesn't solve the problem. It takes a piece of the problem and it gives you a solution. So we've actually been looking at, we talked about this like over a year ago where there was some, we saw on an online sale that were large like football lockers. And we could buy them. I offered to take it to the city council to buy them if we could find someplace to put them and a group to kind of monitor it. And we were unsuccessful in that. It doesn't make, we'd rather not have them outside somewhere because they're probably going to be susceptible to the weather. In this case, the ones that we found that were used were going to be susceptible to weather. The chief found that there are some that are weatherproof. So you could literally put these outside on the side of a building and let people keep their personal belongings in there. But all of those options are going to require commitments, not just from the city, but from the community. The warming center that we have now is funded mostly privately. Good people getting together and helping to solve a problem. We're all in this, so we all have to be part of the solution, and I'm glad to see so many people out here tonight to talk about what the options are. But there has to be, regardless of what happens, there's got to be some sort of financial commitment. The next couple of slides just are digital versions of the services that we have offered. These are available to anyone, anytime, and that guide is going to be available as soon as we get a pile of them printed. If I can find any good local printing company, I do know a good local printing company. We'll see if we can get those printed out and somewhere other than online. But as you can see, there's lots of resources available. The issue we have is that not everybody chooses them. In November of 2024, the council put forth a resolution. We recognize that homeless and housing insecurity are affecting a wide variety of factors, which are very fluid and require a change of policies, goals, and procedures to adequately address, requiring both policy and structural and systemic interventions necessary for those experiencing the consequences of poverty and homelessness. Our council made a commitment last November. This is a piece of that. Not all people are allowed in the warming center, as the chief said. There are people that can't follow the rules. Not all people are allowed to sleep with the Salvation Army or any of the other facilities. There's a basic right that everyone has, but they all have a price, and that's really what it comes down to. To say that everybody has a right to sleep, yeah, but those rights come at a cost as well. And the biggest problem that we see is that some are not respecting the property that they were allowed to use. The next couple of slides talk about the ordinance. Chief, did you want to go over any of these pieces? I know Attorney Beveridge is here. If anybody wants to chime in, I think it's relatively straightforward with the definitions. As you can see in the packet, it's basically one page. Definitions of camping, city property, campsites, and then talks about camping and what that means, the warning procedure, because again, this isn't the big hammer or a big stick. This is trying to encourage people to get the help they need. So the warning procedure, removal of personal property, and when the city staff identifies a campsite, what happens, and then like the chief talked about, which is really an important piece, is the diversion program. So again, encouraging people to get help. This is an example of the notice to get rid of the property. And just summarizing here, the ordinance gives law enforcement a tool when needed. You have several options. You don't have to do anything tonight, but we'd like some direction. Find a 365 shelter option, adopt it with a contingency. We enact the ordinance or adopt the ordinance on the condition that city staff find a 365 shelter, or limit the area that we start with, or suggest changes, or we're open to other solutions. But this has been a topic of discussion at City Hall for months, just this year. And doing nothing does not appear to be an option. So with that, Madam Chairman, I would open it up to comments. I'll keep the PowerPoint up in case anybody has questions, and you have the city attorney.
So obviously we're going to hear a lot of thoughts and comments on this tonight, but I wanted to make some comments leading in about municipal court procedure and how this diversion program can work, because obviously the details of that are not contained in the ordinance itself. And even though prosecuting the municipal court is a pretty substantial part of what my office does, it's not something the council, the mayor, or really the public or anyone hears about all that much. So just wanted to add some information here so everybody just understands how that functions. So first off, somebody would have to be issued a citation by the police department. And as you heard from Chief Cuso, it's going to be sort of a last resort to actually cite someone under this. Now, if that happens, that gets filed in the municipal court, and there's a couple ways that can go. So a person could enter a not guilty plea with the court in writing, in which case we would schedule a pretrial conference, which is just a meeting with me, usually in person in my office, and we talk about it. Or they could come to court at the time and date listed on the ticket. We do that Thursday nights at 5 o'clock, the first 2 Thursdays of the month, down at City Hall. If the person enters a not guilty plea in person at that time when their case is called, we go through the rest of the pleas of anyone who's there that night, and then anyone who pled not guilty, we take them in order, and same thing. I have a meeting with them in my office. I ask them, you pled not guilty, so what do you want to talk about? You know, what do you want to tell me about the situation? And we spend some time talking about it. That might be 3 minutes, that might be 30 minutes sometimes. And then, of course, a person can also default on the citation. You don't show up to court, you don't enter a not guilty plea, then the court will enter find you guilty based on your failure to appear. Even then, there is the ability for people to request that something be reopened. That can be granted. It is on a basis of some standards, though. You need to be able to show that it was sort of inexcusable neglect. Now, presuming somebody gets a citation under this ordinance, enters a not guilty plea, they're sitting down and talking to me about it, that's when we would be looking at this diversion program. The police department's going to provide a trifold brochure of resources. Hopefully by this time, somebody will have already reached out to some of those resources and taken advantage of them. But even if not, I'm going to have the conversation with them at that time. What is it that you need? What is going on with you? What led up to this? And what options do you have? And work through it. And that's pretty normal for me in the prosecution role. Some examples I can give that are kind of akin to that. We get plenty of people who have tickets for operating after suspension, operating after revocation of their, or operating with revoked registration on their car. That's usually if somebody gets a parking ticket and they don't pay it, or operating without insurance. Almost all of the time, if people either show up to court or show up to a meeting and they've gotten that taken care of, they got their license reinstated, they acquired insurance for the vehicle, whatever it is they need to do, I'm happy to dismiss those tickets because I'd rather have people pay for car insurance than pay a fine to the court. But even if they show up and they haven't done that yet, usually I'll say, well, do you think you could get that done in 2 weeks? Okay, great. So come back within 2 weeks, show us proof that you got that stuff taken care of, and we'll throw out the ticket. So there is a lot of flexibility there. I wrote this so that you're not automatically entitled to the diversion program. I mean, if you're just a jerk, you're a jerk. Okay, let's be honest. If somebody comes to my office, they start yelling at me. No, that's not going to work. Which is where you see the city, we shall develop the program. Such dismissals will be evaluated based on a case-by-case basis. Now, it says, may have a first offense citation dismissed if X, Y, and Z. Notice it does not preclude the dismissal of a second or subsequent citation either. Now, the idea would be that if you come in with a second ticket, I'm going to view it with more skepticism than the first, but it doesn't preclude me from also dismissing a second citation. And again, it's all going to be case-by-case basis. I like to sit and have quality, long conversations with people about these things sometimes. So just wanted everyone to have that basis of understanding of what this would be on my office's end. With that, I'll get the heck out of here unless there's really specific questions about. That was awesome. I mean, literally, I feel that circle closing down on me. So if there's any questions about just sort of the nuts and bolts of this right now, otherwise, I think there's a lot of people who want to have me shut up and get their own chance up the
All
mic
right,
here.
thank you, City Attorney. I think I'll just, before we go to public comment, if there's any brief clarifying questions from the committee, we can come back with a larger discussion once we've had public comment. But is there anything anyone on the committee wants to ask the chief, the attorney, before we open it to the floor?
I guess I have a few clarifying questions. So the reasonable effort language, it kind of sounds like case by case.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job of summarizing that. It's probably hard. What do you anticipate? I mean, this sounds like an increased caseload. This sounds like, do you work kind of with any cases like this today, specifically something like this, or what do you see as far as an increase in volume with having individuals come in on a basis like this?
There is no possible future in which there are enough citations issued under this that it would even come close to approaching the workload I have from OWI cases. So I'm not concerned about that.
Okay. And then I guess for the chief, it sounds like in speaking with some of these neighboring communities, did you get a sense, or as far as instituting an ordinance like this, any on the books that those communities had, and any efforts with additional training or need for bringing up additional staff to interact?
No additional staff to interact. Officer Ratzik is our CIT officer. He will do all the interacting. And I will tell you what it has done for those agencies that I talked to is those individuals that just don't want resources are forced to get the resources. They may not accept them after they receive them, but it's a step in the right direction to help them with whatever they're having issues with.
Okay. Thank you both.
Just to clarify and add a little bit to Alder Buzzi's question, several Wisconsin cities already have very similar ordinances. This was modeled, what's the phrase you use, RC&D?
R&D, rip off and duplicate.
Rip off and duplicate. Modify to fit our needs. So this is actually modeled after some of the other Wisconsin cities that already have these on the books.
Very good.
Chief, I think this was Fond du Lac, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just to clarify, I spoke to Alder Keemer earlier today, and this part about reasonable effort to reach out for these resources came up. I gave some examples of what wouldn't be reasonable effort. It'd be like, I sent a text to something 2 weeks ago, and that was it. Like, you need to do a little bit more than that, but also I would absolutely leave the door open to, okay, so over the next couple days or the next week, you go out and you make this effort, and then we can set a meeting to sit down and talk about it again. You can let me know how it was going. Like, that's really common too. It's like, oh, you don't have this squared away now. Well, let's give you a little bit more time. Now that you've met me, we've had a talk about it. You know that I am going to like really take this seriously if you don't follow through. So that would actually be fairly par for the course. So.
Okay. Extenuating circumstances, things like that.
Yeah, it's all case by case, and some are harder and require more patience than others. So.
Okay, yes, Alder Steinmetz.
Are we able to extrapolate and kind of get a ballpark for how much it would cost to increase the hours at the warming shelter, like opening up for more months?
I'm hoping we're going to hear from that tonight. I had a discussion with Tiffany in the back, and we're looking at potentially $150,000 annually to provide support. And I'll let Tiffany talk about that. Tiffany's got all of the books for the current warming center and what it takes to run that, so she is the best person to explain that.
Okay. One other question. Did we get any feedback from the people of Fond du Lac in terms of how an ordinance like this impacted their community?
Just that the individuals that are refusing resources are getting them now.
Okay.
I know Fond du Lac, since they implemented it, they've written 4 citations, and those 4 individuals have gotten resources, and they've been deferred prosecution.
Wow.
And I'll add to that too, because I've got a mayor's peer group. What?
Let me add as well. Up in Wausau, it's a whole different game right now, because in Wausau, they're unhoused. They're having a very large issue. And what the council did now is they actually put it onto the police department. So Chief Matt Barnes is actually overseeing this shelter. He's going to open up a shelter for 365 days a year. The council is giving him an increase in their operational budget. He is going to be allowed to hire up to 10 LTE to actually do the staffing of that. And his goal is by December to hopefully have a nonprofit take it over in December. But in order to help their agency or their city now, he's actually taking on that workload. And I think we've got really good people here in the city that can actually take that on for us. So.
Yeah, and that funding came from the community too, because it wasn't just the city.
And the county.
It was several $100,000 to hire those LTEs.
I'd be curious to see how that all worked out. That looks like something worthwhile looking into here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the other mayors that I've talked to that have similar type ordinances, it helps. Doesn't solve the problem, but it helps.
Alder Lane, did you have any questions at this point?
I was hearing that, like, there's obviously a need for a 365-day-a-year service for our unsheltered folk, and sounds like we could get maybe some intergovernmental cooperation occurring on some of that between our housing authority, our redevelopment authority, our city council. If we could all work together to get that addressed, I think like we could get some positive outcomes here when it comes to our homeless and our downtown.
Thank you, Alder Lang. All right, if you have comments to make, please come to the podium. You can start lining up. And I do ask that you keep it to 3 minutes. State your name and address, please.
Sounds good. Mike Beacom, 933 3rd Street. I just want to thank the city for bringing this forward for discussion. I think it is overdue, and this is something that we've talked about for a while. And I would say, I think Stephen's Point needs a 365-day shelter for this community. However, I would argue that that's going to solve about 10% or 15% of the problem. That's not going to solve what most folks deal with on a regular basis. Like many things in 2025, this is a polarizing issue. So the way that the narrative is shaped is you're either all in and compassionate and supportive of the homeless community, or you're against them and their right to live. It's much more complex than that. Most of the people downtown are compassionate people. The homeless community has a number of groups that support them and back them, so they have a huge level of support in Stevens Point, and that really shows well for us. I'm somebody, my passion is our downtown business community. I respect those folks. These are folks that put a lot of their money into their businesses, into their equipment. They work, owners work 7 days a week. And these are not Walmart margins. These are tight margins. This has had an impact. I also am surprised, with SPPD that it took this long to get here, because I think our police department has done as well as any community could expect in dealing with this issue. They always handle it incredibly well, but as somebody that's downtown every day, all the time, they're always there. And the point I would add to that is, as somebody that deals with this with a number of buildings, we've had people defecate on our carpets after being told they couldn't use the bathrooms, people that smoke in bathrooms. When I went back through more than 3 years, almost 4 years since we tracked this, less than 10% of those incidents where we responded to one of our tenants or something we observed, we called police. So less than 10% of the time we involve police. And in those cases, there's kind of an informal eviction process where you have to get a name, you work with an officer, and maybe a business person says that's it, they can't come back in here. It's a pain, but less than 10% of the time, which means that what they're responding to could be 10 times what your downtown business community is dealing with on a regular basis. So I would have you keep that in mind. We want to find solutions for all of these things, not just the homeless community, but for our downtown folks and the community that wants to come down there. The last thing I'll add is there's a lot of talk about resources and, the city investing money. And I think you probably have to. You need to consider some metrics. You need to look at ways that you can track success. If you're going to invest energy and time and money, then you need to know what's working, what's not. It can't just be a blanket check and do this. Let's find out how we can make this thing better. And I think we've got a pretty good plan to start.
Thank you, Mr. Beacom.
Hi, I'm Bob Gifford, your county board rep for District 10, which includes some low-income housing over there on Texas Avenue, so I'm familiar with some of these problems. As your county board rep, I'm following this issue statewide in search of system solutions, and I look for help at every county association meeting. Don't always find it, but let's put this whole problem in a big context. CAP Services, I'm on the board of, says there's a severe shortage of affordable housing in Wisconsin, means families with lowest incomes suffer the most. They have a paper up on the web with that title. And it's not just Stevens Point, as we know. Homeless people throughout the region. Every city, large to small, has some homeless population, okay? Now, some communities, large to small, are working on solutions, small to big. Some are big. Bayfield and Bayfield County have a kind of multi-solution going on. Milwaukee City and County have their Housing First program. Get people off the street into housing first before you deal with their other mental health needs or whatever, as does Dane County, and more are coming. It's a model that's being followed. The Appleton area, as well as Winnebago County, have big programs like the Winnebago Land Housing Coalition, and so on. So I get to file these things through the Counties Association. And I'm sorry to report that our county level, Portage County, does not have much going on for low-income people in bad need of housing. I would say we're kind of absent without leave on that, sorry to say. So I would say this, like, in context, I go back 40 years. Okay, in Philadelphia, we had 40,000 people homeless, publicly homeless, and our labor union was trying to do some work with them to enable them to get employed and so forth. So the homelessness has been around for a while, okay? It's not a new thing. And I think bringing the law down in Stevens Point on homeless folk not going to make the crisis disappear either. So I want to see Wisconsin Counties Association and your League of Municipalities get working at system solutions. And what is that going to mean? It's going to mean resources. What do resources mean? Money. And where's that money going to come from? Not from local taxes. It's going to have to come from the taxing power of the state of Wisconsin through our legislature. So those are some ideas I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gifford.
Good evening. My name is Samuel Bavito. I live over on Ridge Road. I am a parent. My kids go to Washington. I've actually got, my eldest is behind us at the BGC right now. I'm a business owner, and I am a elder at Frame Memorial Church. I haven't had the opportunity, because I only heard about this meeting earlier today, I haven't had the opportunity to talk with the other folks at Frame, so I'm not representing Frame. But I do know that Frame wants to be part of the solution, that this issue is very important to us. I am very frustrated that while you've done an excellent job of illustrating and documenting the problem, you are the only written proposal we have is citations from a man with a gun. And maybe we should talk about solutions. You seem to have it backwards here. One thing you said, Mayor Wiesa, was that after the warming center closes, these people have nowhere to go. Why are we talking about citations when you've already outlined specifically the problem? This whole thing is entirely backwards. People need a place to go. Why are we even having a discussion? Why are there words written on paper about how the fine will work and who is going to do this? And we've talked to the attorney about that and the other, before we've even had like a written proposal for how can we make sure that we have a 365 shelter? What are the needs? What do the organizations that help address this problem think should be done? What is their input? You talked to someone from one of those organizations earlier today. This proposal wasn't written earlier today, and yet you talked to her earlier today. It feels entirely backwards, and I think we need to table or not discuss this citation piece of it until we have a real proposal with details and funding figured out for what our solution is. The solution is not a citation from a man with a gun. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I need some clarification. We didn't start talking about this today or last week. We've been talking about it for years. I've been talking with other groups. I know the chief's been talking with some of these groups that provide solutions. 2 years ago, the city went around to look at purchasing properties. And I know, Tiffany, you were with me. Mr. Hansel, I think you were with us, looking at different properties that the city would be willing to purchase, or at least me speaking on that behalf, presenting it to council for a purchase, if the groups could work together. Norm Barber's old place on Division Street. We had another spot a little further down on Division Street. We went around and toured these facilities, offering to purchase those if any of the groups would work together and run it. And that didn't go anywhere. So it wasn't like we started talking about this last week. We've been working on it for years, trying to propose solutions. The solutions have not yet transpired. I'm confident they will. But in the meantime, the police department needs the tools to make sure that the downtown is safe, because nobody should have to walk in feces. So I just wanted to get that out there, that this isn't new. We've been working on this for a couple of years.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Mallory, 1311 West River Drive. For this past season, I was the operations manager at the warming center. I know almost every single one of our homeless population, know them by name. I've talked to them so many times. These people have been told and pushed around, told where they can't be. No one has ever said where they can be. And there's a lot of frustration as far as how they feel about just the community in general, because They're literally getting bullied. Now, the main problem that this community faces is a lack of affordable housing. You had the Point Hotel got closed down. That was 80 beds. Attorney Century closed. That was another 20 rooms. Businesses like Candlewood took over low-income housing, jacked the prices where it's unattainable. Blue Top Inn, their monthly fee tripled. It's bears like this with evictions on their records, unobtainable security deposits, and property managers require 3 times monthly rent for a verifiable income. That's a huge barrier for these people just to even attempt to get into housing. There's a lot of talk about opening up 365 shelter. I can speak for myself as the manager. We're willing to do it. It's going to take money. Our initial thoughts right now is it's going to be about $150,000 a year. And that's mostly just for paying our staff and supplies. It's still going to take a lot of donations and volunteer work on top of that. And this all contingent on being approved by Frame, which houses us, and approval by the Evergreen Community's board of directors as well. It's not a perfect solution, but it may be a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mallory.
Craig Schuler, 3334 Dan's Drive, Stevens Point. A little background on me. I'm president and founder of Digicopy. My headquarters have been downtown Stevens Point for 23 years. I've been in the Rose Park building, just about every corner of that building at one time or another. Mike is my landlord. So I've seen the evolution of stuff going on downtown, probably more than most people, because I've been there for 23 years. I'm also spent 15 years on the board for the Salvation Army. I left that position 4 years ago, so I spent 15 years, and I recognize many of the people on the street corners in front of the Franciscan Center from the years I was involved with the Salvation Army. They're the same people. They've been offered many, many opportunities over time, and in these situations, these are the people that Bob said just have chose not to take advantage of those opportunities. Now, that said, every person deserves a chance, and I believe that. I'm also one of the founding board members for Transact Hope. That's a homeless charity, faith-based. We center on keeping people who are on the road. We're not the place to take somebody who's in the throes of drug addiction. But we've been in operation for 15 years here in Stevens Point. And I'm also on the board for Bridge Street Mission up in Wausau, which is probably the model we should be trying to get to. Okay, that's the model we should be trying to get to. The homeless the shelter, the Franciscan, they're all trying to do great things, but they're not coordinated. And in the case of the Franciscan place, they're in the wrong spot. And if we get a 365-day shelter and they close at 9, they're still going to walk downtown every day. And they're still going to be across from the public library every day, which is one of the places we want people to bring their kids and feel safe. Okay? So that's just the wrong spot for that charity. Doesn't mean they're not doing the right work, but it's the wrong spot. So having the wherever these people go during the day and the shelter closely related, and by the way, that's where the locker should be. The locker should be there too. That's key. That's key. So in Wausau, I've met Chief Barnes, and so we're hoping that Bridge Street Mission is the solution coming January 1 for their homeless shelter up there, right? That's our hope. In fact, we just wrote a proposal for it. But something much more integrated is really, really important, and it can't be across from the library. It just doesn't work. It's the wrong spot for it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schuler.
J.D. Manville, hobby store at 927 Main Street, hobby store at 1209 2nd Street, and I had a stereo shop at 801 Clark Street in 1973. And this is going to be short. I think that the downtown zoning ordinances should be tightened. I don't know if any of you or anybody could look at other possible communities that have done that. Downtown should be retail, period.
Thank you, Mr. Manville.
Hi, folks. Jackie Guthrie, Alder District 2. I have a lot of gratitude tonight for everyone who's coming out and participating in the conversation. If there were perfect solutions to these problems, we would have done it a long time ago or been copying those who did. So I appreciate that we're talking about something really hard and really sensitive. And I'm just grateful for the folks who are contributing to ideas and trying to find solutions to the problems. So thank you, Chief and Mayor, for bringing this forward today. I really appreciate it. One technical question on the draft ordinance that perhaps Logan or the Chief could answer at some point. It doesn't have to be tonight. Does the 48-hour detail involve an individual or a location?
For the property that's left?
No, for like if someone is camping for 2 days, can they move camp and that starts that 48-hour clock over? Or so is it the individual or is it, right, I essentially saw in my own reading a potential loophole or challenge, and I was just wondering if that was a point of conversation.
No, we can talk about it. The 48 hours is for the warning for the property. So if there's property, if there's a camp found, what we do is we actually put this on the camp and they have 48 hours to move it. If not, we'll actually collect it and put it into evidence or hold it for their property for the next 30 days. But that's what that 48 hours is.
Right, and so if it's moved to a different, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
so that's
okay.
something we'd have to look at.
So, okay, so something that I was feeling curious about. Thanks for considering that. I wonder if for the alders who aren't aware and might eventually have to act on this draft, there is a private land camping ordinance that some of you may be in districts that you've dealt with enforcement of. Maybe you haven't. I have, and so it might also serve us well to compare the two ordinances so that we can make sure that we're not making one problem worse by implementing a different problem. I would really welcome the collation of basically a call for written comment from organizations with whom we partner on this difficult topic to write to City Council with their opinion of this draft. I agree with other speakers that this is maybe not the right place to start, or maybe not. It shouldn't be our priority. But the bottom line is, if our staff are recommending it, we will need to consider it. And so we would like to see our partners and hear from them about whether or not they see this as a potential tool in the toolbox, even if you wouldn't have liked to have seen it first. If I may, just two more things.
Sure.
I agree with and appreciate that folks have shared a housing first approach. I see folks with pets. I see folks with children. I see folks who are substance users, and I wonder where they are allowed to go in our community. I will not be voting for an ordinance tool until we have a viable solution to give those folks who don't find a place to go right now. I'm also wondering about the consequences of not paying fines. So we've heard about the goal of no one paying this fine, but rather getting to help. But I do not want to contribute to debtor's prison or some sort of equivalent of that, right? What are we doing to these people if they are cited and they do not pay it? I would like your advisement on that, or Logan's, before we move this ahead. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alder Guthrie.
Alderpersons, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chief, my name is Ashley Abraham Hood. I'm the pastor at Frame Memorial Presbyterian Church. I'm also a constituent living on, I'm trying to remember it, 5341 Clover Court. I am a new resident in the last 2 years, so I'm trying to get to know this community and also the unhoused community, which our partners know very well at ECI. I'm really here more as a clarification today. Our board, which operates much like this, hasn't even put anything on an agenda yet to talk about this. So we have no voting representative that has been part of this discussion just yet. So we need time to do that, and I hear there's been a lot of time spent, but it's not accurate that we are working on a plan because it hasn't even hit our docket yet. So thank you all for all your concern for all the people of Stevens Point.
Excuse me, can I have a name of who I need to talk to? Because we spoke to Linda.
Yes.
Last week, and
So-
Linda said they would go on a meeting agenda for Tuesday.
There is no meeting agenda for Tuesday. I don't know where that came from. Linda is our very wonderful administrative assistant, and so I really think that was a wonderful first step to meet you, and I hope to meet you myself and actually have a conversation. But just so you know, Presbyterian polity, I only have one vote at one place in our polity, and so we have to work on that, and we very much care about the partners, both with ECI and One Big Tent and all the other community partners, and I agree that we need to all come to the table, and we can't just keep pushing the money thing onto other communities, because all the communities that we're working with are out of funds right now. So, anything else?
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you very much.
Sean Morrow, I'm the alder for Area 11. I also manage the local probation parole office for 10 years. I also still work for the Department of Corrections as well. I do not speak for the Department of Corrections, but I would like to also share the experiences that I have. Just like with just like what the police chief said, a number of those, a number of who are unhoused are with us. They commit the retail thefts. They do the disorderly conducts. They have simple drug charges. Some of them are selling drugs, and those are the ones that we see. We try to use the carrot and a stick. We have a lot more resources, and for years we used to house them. We used to find landlords. And after they trashed their place a few at times, for some reason they don't want to rent to us again. We used to go to Point Motel and some other motels as well. Once they trash the place, sell drugs out of the place, do other various illegal activities as well, they don't want to rent to us anymore. And the biggest myth I hear is we need to house the unhoused. That will do nothing if you don't cure what the actual issue is. Being unhoused is the result. It's not the issue, really. It's because they have a drug problem, they have a mental health problem, they have various other things. I mean, I hear folks say we don't have enough money for any kind of resources for these folks. We have a ton of resources. I mean, I'm not going to waste the next half hour going through them. We have so many. We are truly blessed here to have so many resources here. The problem is that people don't want to be engaged. There's nothing you can really do with that. I cannot tell you the number of times we have someone and they get picked up for drugs. They have a disorderly, so on, and they're in jail. I'm sick. I need help. All right. We put them in inpatient rehab. They run the very next day. They end up getting caught. I'm sick. I need help. We put them in rehab again, and then they run again, and then the cycle goes on and on. I mean, if someone doesn't want to get help, someone doesn't want to make that change yet, no one can really force that. I have a lot of folks who have used the resources that we have. They were unhoused. I talked before, I had a person that lives in my area. She was unhoused for a year. She used the resources. She was able to go back to school on a grant. They helped pay for her house. They helped pay for her car. She didn't have a car. They have wheels to work. They helped her fund a car so that she could get to and from work. Only thing she had to do was engage in the services. The same thing with drug and alcohol. We have the resources. We have an inpatient program here. It's free. All right? If they don't want to engage in that, there's nothing that we can do. And we have caseworkers, social workers, that will take you to your mental health, to take you to your mental health. Make sure you take your meds. They will take you if you do not have a ride. Right? But if they run and their caseworker cannot find them, and it's not because they don't have a phone, because if you're a homeless person, when was the last time you saw someone who was actually homeless who didn't have a phone? There are programs for that because it's free. And if you don't want to engage in that, and the thing that Chief Kusu talked about in Wausau as well, they're doing a lot of stuff there. They have cops, they have a caseworker. That's all they end up doing. And they built the community partners, called the CPC. All the services are right there. The warming shelter's there. Housing is there. Food is there. Social workers are there. Mental health is there. It's all there. And some people use it. Others just hang out, scroll on their phone all day. And what Wausau's doing too, they're going to have their own place. And one of the things that we brought up to them was, if you build it, they will come. So they're going to have an incentive as well. You can stay here, but you have to commit to going into resources so you don't stay homeless.
Alderman Morrow?
If you don't, you will leave. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tiffany Mallory, 1311 West River Drive. So, I don't know how I'm going to go right now because I'm really frustrated. This is really a hurting topic for me. I'm most frustrated that I found out about this in the news. Running the Stevens Point Warming Center, I had to pay to find out that I'm being talked about in the news. Why are we not bringing this to the nonprofits? Why haven't we talked? Seriously, we are ready and willing to do more. We just need more help. We need community involvement. We need more help. We're going at this backwards. Let's turn this around right away. Let's get the shelter in place, plot of land, something. We need a solution. This is not going to go away because you're going to make it illegal. I'm fed up. I'm frustrated. I'm the one that works with all these individuals. 90 people we served, not the same people. 90 people we served in 5 months. They're not the same people, okay? It's frustrating because there's so much stigma. You guys aren't out there doing the work. Why aren't we talking to us, the people who are out here doing the work? I'm frustrated.
Tiffany, I'm sorry, before you leave, you and I talked about this. Can you give us an idea of what you spend on the warming center, what the money is used for the resources, so we can get an idea of what we'll need to put together if this becomes 365, whether it's Frame or any other organization?
Frame is our partner. They do not operate this. That's why I don't understand why they were even contacted. We have the insurance for all this. We do all the work, all the legwork in all this.
Yeah, okay. It may not be at the Frame location. It might be other locations.
We only had a few days to prepare because we weren't notified about this other than in the paper, okay? We came up with about $150,000 that we could probably operate a year-round shelter with. We could extend our hours. We could operate until 8:30 p.m. till 8 in the morning. We can do these things if we have the community support. I don't like how this is just all coming up from behind and making it's just not appropriate.
It's
we gotta
a discussion,
I understand there are people. I do understand that. We were not able to shelter all those 90 people. 5 people were permanently banned because they were not housable with other people. I understand this. I totally understand this. But there are 85 people that we're still trying to help out of those 90 people in those 5 months. We're trying.
What I'm asking for is, can you give the city a breakdown on, we need $70,000 for staff, we need
I definitely can do that
$40,000
if I
for food.
had time.
Sure, no, and I'm not saying now.
Okay, yeah,
But
like I said, I
sometime over
found
the
out
next
about this
week
in the
or two,
paper.
give us an idea. I mean, you've got the winter warming centers, so
Yes.
we could use percentages of
We've
those.
been doing
'cause
this for
will be
10 years. I've been in this fight
7
for
months.
15. Seriously, this conversation it should have started here. This should have started with us, because we're the ones on the front lines. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Mallory.
Sam Polito, 960 Main Street. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, but it's sad when I go down there at 7 a.m. every morning and I see people sleeping in doorways. 8, 10, 12 people. But those same 8, 10, 12 people, we fed them. We've tried to do stuff for them. They don't want that type of help. They need rehab. The gentleman that was speaking, they need more than a place to stay, because obviously they're not allowed to stay in places because they hurt the people that really want to be there or have to be there. They can't be with those people because it's mental illness too. I see people out there in a sleeping bag in Stevens Point, Wisconsin at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's not right, but we're not going to cure it. And as a business owner, these are our neighbors, but they're coming into our bathrooms and I find needles in the garbage cans. They have pit bulls out there, 2 of them. They're not allowed in most neighborhoods. We have German shepherds that are little kids are walking by and they're barking at them. There has to be some rules for those people that don't want to follow them, or because they're hurting everybody else who's trying to rehab themselves, trying to get back on their feet, and they're disruptive. So we need to do something with the 10 to 12 people that are really a problem. And money is an issue, but I hear them on their cell phones. They're on disability. They must get housing for somewhere. They have to get money for housing. Can't we use that towards the shelters? I mean, we have to find, I understand that this is a big problem and everybody wants a solution. I don't want them in our business because it costs us money. And money ain't the only thing we can. We're a family. We've been down there for 17 years, almost 18 years. We've got little kids that come in with their families, their grandparents. They bring them down there. We don't want them to be afraid to walk by a pit bull. We don't want them to have to walk by 2 German shepherds that are barking at them. You wouldn't have them next door. If your next door neighbor had 2 pit bulls that were just out in front of their house, you'd be calling the police. Well, that's what we're doing too, and we need help too as business owners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Polito. Is there anyone else from the audience here? Because I'm sure we have people online who are waiting to speak.
Nobody's raised their hand.
Okay.
We could do that.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Hi, Troy Natsky from 912 Main Street, Graffiti Sports Pub. Like Sam, I've been downtown a long time too, about 30 years. This problem, yeah, it's been here for a very long time. Back in summer of 22, I was president of the Stevens Point Alliance, and I started a little coalition of a light bulb moment. We're talking to one of the unhoused individuals. I'm not going to say his name here. Actually, I haven't seen him around for a while, so I'm not sure what happened with him. But back to some questions that were said here. They don't want to. The question was, why do you want to be down here? And they basically said, and I had PD at that meeting. Dana was there, and Rotier was there, and some of our Stevens Point Alliance members at the time were there, and several of the unhoused individuals came to this meeting. So I brought them all in the same room. It was right after that 2-day event, Discover Downtown, and he wanted to help me put the stage away, and I said, no, that's okay, I'll take care of liability issues, stuff like that. And I started a dialogue. I'm working on the stage, and I'm talking with him, and I said, why is it you guys want to be down here? And like it was said earlier, This is the only place we're not kicked out of. They won't let us be anywhere else. And I said, and they even kick us out of the parks, so we can't even be at the parks. I said, okay, I understand. And he said, and Tiffany understands. Remember this conversation, Tiffany? Yeah. Conversation went very simply. He's like, we don't want to be on a circus display in downtown, but they don't give us any other place to go. With that being said, I'm not going to relate everything that happened here tonight. So we do need to work on a place to go. They do not want to be on display in downtown Stevens Point. They do not. I give you that. The resources there right now, so they're there. So that needs worked on. Well, this is where the thumb comes down a little bit, right? We all have laws for a reason. There needs to be an ordinance in the book that starts the toolbox, starts the tool, maybe perfect catalyst to get this conversation going as well, right? So I thank this commission. I thank the police for doing everything they do, and every time when a business owner has to call in and make a complaint about something happening, that the response time is amazing. Thank you very much. So we all are compassionate, we all believe in this, and I'll finish where I ended up. They don't want to be there, they don't want to be circus display animals, okay? Remember that. So when you create this ordinance, you are helping them with their goal of not being in that location. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else here? And I guess I'll call out to anyone online who wants to speak.
Those online, there's a virtual hand. You can raise your hand, and we can see that, and we can call on you.
Okay. I do have 2 comments to read into the meeting. Oh.
Connor McKenzie.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Connor McKenzie. I'm a student at the university. I currently reside in the dorms, and I just feel that this ordinance, while there needs to be something kind of done about homelessness, especially in Stevens Point, I think I would be cautious about criminalizing homelessness with that $100 fine. And I think I would, I guess, caution the committee that what previous speakers already said is there could be that kind of debtor's prison, or what kind of opportunities are we then blocking by creating outstanding fines if they can't be paid? And so I think, if an ordinance is used for maybe referrals or other methods, that could be good, but I would caution against imposing such a high fine or fine at all on individuals that are in violation of this proposed ordinance.
Thank you very much. Okay. I did receive 2 letters from residents who asked that these be spoken into the record. They will also be included in the meeting minutes. The first is from Jerome Segura. He states, the new ordinance criminalizing camping is the result of years of disinvestment in public service. Over 7 years, the current administration siphoned more than $35 million, nearly 2 annual budgets worth of spending away from essential public programs to fund luxury developments and low-quality jobs. By prioritizing these pet projects over affordable housing and public services, the city has strategically deepened the homelessness crisis, neglecting the most vulnerable while catering to short-term political interests. I have one more letter that I will read. And this one is from Daniel Warachowski. And he asked for me to read, as a Stevens Point resident since 2012, I have seen an increase in the houseless population, particularly since 2020. This is not an issue isolated to our community, but our reaction and gracefulness in how we treat our neighbors, regardless of their economic situation, is something we must own. We are a unique city, and we can come up with unique solutions beyond the easy ticket and enforcement route larger cities in our nation have. Before passing such an ordinance, I implore council to reflect on how we can confront homelessness in a holistic approach that confronts root causes and delegates resources to such work. As a member of the board of the Hunger and Poverty Prevention Partnership, I can attest to the fact that there are volunteer committees and collaboratives that could and should step up to the plate to partner with the city to create creative local solutions to this larger systemic problem. Houselessness is a human situation and signifies an emergency. Let's treat it as such. Once again, I implore you to stay a vote or vote no to such an ordinance until we create a well-rounded, human-centered plan that involves the input of agencies and organizations close to this issue." End quote. And with that, I will bring it back to the committee if you have further things to comment on or discuss, any other clarifying questions or recommendations for moving forward.
I do just want to add that there's some individuals that got up and said our first step is this ordinance. That is incorrect. The first step is to get a shelter that's 365, and that was put in that presentation. Without that, I don't think the ordinance should go through either. The first step is to get them the resources they need for housing at least 365 days a year. So just so people are aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You know, and that is a goal with pretty much everything we do. It's the ordinances are there in an attempt to gain voluntary compliance. We don't have speed limits, contrary to what some may think, so we can get out there and bust people and have fines. That's not the goal. The goal is to get people to slow down. And the consequence of that is a fine, potentially. We don't catch every speeder. But we have ordinances in place to try and compel people to do the right thing and to be responsible. I'll give you a personal example I'm a little embarrassed about. We have an ordinance that I had read about in the city about soliciting, panhandling. And I went down to the first day of the farmer's market, and there, sitting on the ground, was a person. I have no idea if they were homeless or not. And I wasn't judging it based on that, but there was a cup with money in it, and a piece of cardboard, and a sign that says, "Anything helps." And I submit to you, what do you think that means? They're sitting there in the farmer's market, the very first day, the longest running farmer's market. And I remembered this ordinance. I asked the gentleman what he was doing there, and he says, "I'm not asking anybody for money." Kind of looks like you're suggesting it. I wound up calling the police because I remembered this ordinance. Well, it turns out that my memory was wrong. That ordinance does exist, but it only exists in city parks. Why, I don't know. Yeah, and I went back the next Saturday, this last Saturday, to try and see if the man was there and apologize. He wasn't there when I was there, so I have no idea what happened. But those ordinances aren't meant to be the stick that we beat you into submission with. And that's not what this goal is either. We've tried for a couple of years to find a solution, a place. I've said it multiple times. Tiffany, I hope, remembers those conversations. I know Greg Hansel was here. I would be willing to ask the council for money to buy a facility if that's what it takes. Maybe frame works, great. Maybe it doesn't. There's a building that I was going to talk to the chief, I saw on my way home, that's for sale, about 4,000 square feet. Should probably work. I would be willing to ask the council for money to buy a building if we could find somebody to run it. We don't have the resources to run a facility like that. You may recall last fall we had to go to referendum to hire 9 new firefighters. We don't have the ability to lay this burden entirely on the taxpayers of Stevens Point. And that's not because people don't want to. I think there's a lot of generous people in the community that step up, and I know that ECI can vouch for that. But we're restricted by state laws on what we can spend each year. So it's not that we don't have options. We're throwing things out on the table, but we need some direction. We need some support. We need cooperation. We've got volunteers that have stepped forward and reached out to me and the chief that would run the facility. I don't know how well that works without paid staff, without training, but we've got volunteers that are willing to do it. Find me a place, they said. So we're looking for places. This ordinance is just a starting point because one of the other speakers said this. This is going to solve some of the problem. The people that want help, that want to follow the rules and be responsible and respectful, this will fix that. regardless of that, you are going to have a segment that this doesn't work for. And those people are still going to be downtown. They're still going to be intimidating passerbys. They're going to use the bathroom wherever they feel like it. They're going to vandalize and spray paint and leave their garbage laying around. And that's what we need this one little piece for, not a little piece, this piece for, is for that segment. Because regardless of finding a facility, if we had a 365 facility today, we would still be requesting this, because there's that segment that this isn't going to address. And I commend all of the groups that are working on every piece of it, the Franciscans and all of the groups that were here tonight, ECI, Transact Hope, Monroe House, which was someone mentioned the turn of the century apartments, that's now Monroe House, which is actually a programming facility. They have 11 clients there now. They have a capacity of 24 eventually. But that came down to staff and resources as well, and a lot of that was money. And the community really stepped up, and they were volunteers there helping paint, and they were donating furniture and mattresses, and it's up and running now. It's working. So we need that, but this is a multifaceted problem, which will require a multifaceted solution. And anybody that thinks we're going to solve homelessness is kidding themselves, because depending on how far or what you believe in, homelessness started with Adam and Eve or Neanderthals, whichever side of the fence you fall on. It's been around forever. In the 40s, they wrote books about it, hoboing. It's not going away, but we need to address what we can, and that's what we're asking for. So I think Connor was the one that I wanted to mention. When he said the $100 fine is, I'm paraphrasing, is too much. It shouldn't be a fine. Well, then what do you suggest? Right? Give us some ideas. Let's modify this. If this doesn't work for you right now, if you don't like the 48 hours, what does work? 36? 72? If the $100 fine doesn't work for non-compliance, and we're really hoping that we get compliance, what does work? 50? 5? We can't mandate someone to go to treatment. I mean, everybody has basic human rights. We can't violate those rights and force them to do something. So if the fine isn't it, I mean, that's kind of the go-to. What is it? We need those suggestions. If this isn't the answer, what is? And that's what we're really hoping to get the discussion moving towards as we move through this.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there other? Yes, Alder Lane.
I'm just curious, how do we cite somebody without an address? I'm looking at Chapter 66, and it says, an ordinance adopted under paragraph A shall prescribe the form of the citation, which shall provide the following. And the first thing is a name and address of the alleged violator. Like, if somebody doesn't have an address, how do we do that?
We leave no address.
Okay.
Anything else from the committee? Well, what I'm hearing as a recommendation from staff is that we do not take action on this until we have a place to house people year-round. I liked Alder Guthrie's suggestion of the community resources having a time and opportunity to form a response and kind of gather their thoughts as to how the city can support them better in reaching these populations. That said, this is a health and safety and sanitation issue for the community at large, and I think everyone here wants to do what's best for the most people. So I guess in terms of a formal recommendation, it sounds like this is just a discussion-only item at this time. I think it will take some time for these groups to kind of formulate their thoughts and meet together and discuss. It would be great if there could be, I know that some of these groups collaborate together all the time. But yeah, if there could be a representative from the city staff or PD, at some kind of large group meeting, that seems like it would be very, very useful too. And anything else?
Suggestions can be sent to the PD, my office, Logan's office, the clerk's office, or any of the alders. Okay. We need that feedback.
Okay.
Would we like to set a date for when we would like that feedback by? Should we shoot for next month, 2 months?
I don't know that that's necessary. I mean, this has been going on for a couple of years already, so sooner the better.
Okay.
Okay, and that is item 4. We still have an item 5 on our agenda tonight, and that is discussion and possible action of downtown parking. Mayor.
So this came through my office. I was able to attend the Business Improvement District Board meeting for a little while, and this came out as a result of that discussion, I'm told. I've been approached a couple of times over the last probably 2 years talking about parking. All of the parking ordinances that exist downtown currently came at the request of the SBA, the ADB, whatever the iteration was of those downtown groups. And apparently there's still some concern about the various types of parking. Alder Christensen, who sits on the bid board, we talked about it on Friday, and his suggestion was that they contact me to try and get it on the agenda. Of course, the agendas are usually out on Thursday. So the timing was rough, but the clerk's office was very accommodating, so thank you very much. Putting it out there, because there's no action that's expected, but we want to hear what those concerns are. Again, just like the last item, to start looking at solutions. Tell us what the problems are, what the concerns are, and we can talk through whatever the solutions might be. So some of the topics that came up, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. Alder Christensen, maybe you can speak to this first. The 2-hour parking isn't enough for everybody. Some people want to do a little shopping, maybe get something to eat. That's more than 2 hours. People get their hair done. Some people, that's more than 2 hours. No offense, Chief. Where'd he go? Good, he didn't even hear me. The no repark. The no repark also came at the request of the Downtown Businesses group. I'm not saying everybody was supporting it, but the organization that existed prior to the bid board, the no repark, because what was happening is people were parking for 2 hours, whether it's their tenants, employees, or sometimes the business owners. They were parking in a spot downtown for 2 hours. They'd get out, they'd move their car over a couple of spots, and park for another 2 hours. There was one at the hospital, and I don't want to point fingers, but they did the same kind of thing. I heard from a resident there that the 2-hour parking, every 2 hours they'd go on a break, all at the same time. The first one would drive around the block, everybody would move up one spot, and you're good for another 2 hours.
Oh my God.
We didn't have the technology we do now back then. We often chalked a tire or maybe looked at a valve stem on one of the tires. Now we have license plate readers. And those license plate readers can tell that you've been there. But one of the drawbacks is we can't tell if you moved one spot over. We just know you're in that certain range. So that actually worked out well, the 2-hour parking and then the no repark. But I've been told that is a concern as well. And then there was some concern about overnight parking. Currently, overnight parking is not allowed on Main Street in the square. And some people find that a problem because they say we're encouraging people that have been overserved to drive home. But that came as a request, mostly because of the farmers market and the vendors that start at 6 a.m. On Saturday mornings. We still have to tow cars on Saturday morning from the Friday crowd. So is there an option there? There are. There are long-term parking areas all around downtown. I get the impression that some people find it challenging to walk across the street to the Crosby lot, which is ironic because I've seen people walk a quarter mile in the Walmart parking lot, or the Fleet Farm parking lot, or the Menards parking lot. But that's them. I think what people want is they want convenient parking. I want to be able to park in front of the store that I want to go to at that moment, and I want to park there until I don't feel like parking there anymore. You have residents downtown now. Residents that have to find a location. Many of them have permits in one of the lots. But if you lift that overnight parking restriction downtown, well, if I was a resident down there, now I'm going to park on the street because it's closer. I don't have to walk that far. So those are the concerns that I'm aware of. Alder Christensen, I don't know if you want to add anything since you are the liaison to that board. Sorry, didn't mean to supersede the chair.
This was not going to
But
be a
it's just
short
discussion.
meeting, no matter
All we
what.
want to do is get the problems out in the open. Let's figure out a solution.
Right. And I am Mark Christensen. I'm the alderperson, or District 1 alderperson, so that is my district. And parking has been obviously the source of a lot of conversations in the 4+ years that I've been an alder. The one that I have heard probably the most consistently as far as a concern is the 2 hours. And that one I've never really heard much opposition to. So I think that might be a good place to start. The others, I can see pros and I can see cons. I think one of the things that would be a logical next step would be to get, we did have a good discussion at the bid board meeting. I think there needs to be more feedback gathered from more people. I mean, I think that's part of the role of the bid board as well. We represent different facets of the downtown community, and so it'd be good to get people's impressions. I know the initial parking restrictions, a lot of them were put in place because business owners would have their employees park in front of other businesses, make sure you don't park in front of ours. And so, I mean, it was one of the reasons why it got instituted in the first place. I'm not sure what the solution is, but I do think we need to get more information. Because of the fact I haven't heard any opposition to shifting it from 2 hours and they suggested 4. I see very little downside to that. I think that one could probably get enacted sooner or later. I think there's also an advantage of making changes gradually, because then you're able to actually assess the impact of that one change. So I think that's an additional benefit. But I think it's a conversation worth having. I don't know whether or not this group, if you do take action tonight, I would restrict it to the one. I think the biggest thing for the other two, I think there's still more conversation to be had.
Thank you, Alder Christensen. Is there anyone else from the audience? Mr. Beacom?
Madam Chair, if I could just take a minute beforehand, because we were talking in another group about potential solutions. And for the business owners here, please don't remember my address. Don't come after me with pitchforks. But it is a solution we could consider. Most larger cities and many of the medium-sized cities do this. Paid parking. We used to have paid parking downtown. We have the ability now to do it right on your phone or a kiosk. And if it's 2 hours, you pay for 2 hours. If you need 3 hours, you pay for 3 hours. If you need 6 hours, you pay for 6 hours, but at all costs. And as a business owner, if you are concerned that you're going to lose customers, maybe you give them $1 discount or whatever the parking is when they purchase an item from your store. Some places use validation. But I want to throw that out there because I don't know if I need 2 hours, 6 hours, or 4 hours. And 4 hours isn't going to solve all the problems either. So I want to throw that out there as a possible solution. Don't burn down my house.
Mike Beacom, 933 3rd Street. I just speak to the residential parking for downtown. I think about 20 years ago, Stevens Point invested in its downtown. We had the facade grant. A lot of buildings were redone, and I think that was a great thing for our downtown. And at the same time of that, a lot of those building owners redid apartments, made them nicer upstairs. There's a big demand for that. But the reality is, and the mayor touched on this, you can say there's parking across the street by Pfiffner, but people are, that's just our nature. They want to park close by. It can be a safety issue. I've had parents call me about, just walking a block where we have parking available for them, and that comes up. And so by doing that and kind of incentivizing folks to do those buildings, I think we do see a bigger population downtown. And, with Northside Yards and other planned development, parking is going to be a shortage. Northside Yards is way underparked. And so there's a high demand for parking. Just consider that as you develop that area and you incentivize that, for the last dozen years, we've been 90 to 95% of our tenants have cars. That's half student, half not. That number hasn't moved. People want to drive to the grocery store in February. and when they go home, they need a car. So this change in how car usage, that's not happening here. So those people want to park close by. I do feel like that is part of the equation for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Yes, sir. Oh, go ahead.
I am Tara Mansky. I own a business at 925 Main Street, and I think that the 2 to 4 hour is a good solution for now, going into a busier season for shoppers, and we have entertainment and things downtown. Open to other discussions, of course, for other long-term solutions if that's, wanted. I do, on a regular basis, myself and my staff hear from people that come into our store as customers that they came from out of town, which is really good. That's so exciting. We have a lot of people that choose Stevens Point. And whether it's their whole group came from out of town or they met people halfway, it's really cool to hear that. It's really discouraging when they get a surprise parking ticket. That really upsets them. And so I know that, Mayor Wiesa, you have mentioned we have the designated parking. I've expressed to you, if I use myself as an example, if I'm driving in a new city that I haven't been to before, my ADD is all out, like it's full force, okay? My focus is not on, where are those designated parking spots? It's more on, look at that really cool building. That's a restaurant I probably want to check out. It isn't the parking. And so, yes, I know we have that, but sometimes by the time they've been here 2 hours, it's too late. So I see this as a temporary solution for now. I think that it's good to explore that. I do think that the no repark is something we should revisit. I think that that's something that we probably need more discussion around. We can't just say there is no reparking, or they are allowed to repark. I think there's more that goes into that, as well as the overnight parking. I don't know how we address that without a whole bunch of other elements that would go into play. So I don't know that those are quick resolutions, whereas I do recommend that we push the 2 hour to 4 hour for now, especially this time of year, just so that we can help people want to come back, and we make it so that they're able to do more than just 1 or 2 things. They can stay for a little while. So,
thank you. Yes, Mayor.
So we've got at least a couple of bid board members here. Was that a request from the bid board, changing 2 to 4, or was that just something they wanted to talk about? Because I want to make sure everybody has a chance to weigh in on those things too. So was there official action?
In terms of, it was taken and discussed by the bid board. Okay. But it was brought by several business owners that have expressed their customers experiencing the same thing, like myself at my business. So that's what stemmed the conversation for us to go to the bid, and then the bid decided that it would be appropriate if we brought it here as a bigger discussion.
Thank you. And just because you're not in front of a microphone, I'm going to summarize that it wasn't an official bid board action, but it was discussed, and several business owners came to the bid board to ask for the change. Is that correct?
Came to bid board members.
Bid board members to ask for the change. Okay.
J.D. Manville again. I've also been a real estate agent for 43 years. A lot of commercial stuff. In fact, we renovated North Point Shopping Mall, made it look real pretty. So unless you have a lot of business experience, you may not realize when I mentioned restrictive zoning, when you have a retail store, people come, they go buy stuff. When you have something you pay a subscription to, you will go wherever that place is because you already paid your money and you have to go there for the lessons. So when you're downtown Stevens Point and it's 4:30 or 5 o'clock and 25 cars show up because they have paid for the lessons that they have to drop their children off to, and then an hour later, the second hour comes along, 25 more cars come down at the busiest time downtown for parking. Restrictive zoning ordinances kind of make sense. Some of these things don't need to be downtown.
Yes, sir.
Greg Warren, 2321 Jersey Street. My wife owns Kindred Spirit Books on Main Street. I drop her off almost every day, and I must notice something. It seems like there's lax parking enforcement down there. And I say that because I notice the same individuals are there every single morning, and they seem to be in the same spots every single afternoon. And there's a couple individuals in particular that doesn't seem like that car gets moved at all, routinely. And I'm like, what? So I think 2 hours is good. If 2 hours gives the city and the police department leeway, as in they don't have to be there continuously to enforce, I think that would help. There's another thing I'm really worried about. I'm seeing long-term city planning that sees a lot of parking eliminated. A lot. I mean, we're talking about eliminating the Crosby Avenue lot. We're talking about eliminating the parking that's informally used by the bank. We're talking about, of course, eliminating the parking, or at least getting rid of most of the parking, use a parking structure instead where Shopko was. We're talking about eliminating parking behind the Century building. I mean, whoa, just a minute. You're going to have nothing down there after a while, and yet this is supposed to make it a more viable area. There is the reality that not everybody's going to show up on a bicycle to shop downtown, and not everybody's going to walk downtown. And I've also seen plans that have propped up again, making Main Street a pedestrian mall. Boy, that's really interesting. Let's put it that way. And some of the plans say that basically Center Point walls off the rest of the street creates a moat. Well, you're also creating a moat by creating multiple family housing all the way around the perimeter of that in the potential plans, and eliminating parking. It's like, I kind of have to disagree with that. But as for the 2-hour parking, if it gives the city enforcement a better mode to enforce, well, that's good. And I wish it just was enforced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. Tornatsky, Graffiti Sports Pub, 912 Main Street. Tara is a vice president of the bid board downtown, if those didn't know that. I'm a member of a committee that's called a promotions committee, marketing. Tara is the lead chair on that committee. During our we're tasked with the idea of giving ideas, marketing, promotion to the bid board, and then the bid board discusses it and has these conversations. So kind of in jest and fun, there's a lot of seriousness always in all these different meetings, right? But right now I said, well, with the 2-hour parking, we're trying to get tourism and visitors and locals. Visit locals, shop downtown again for the first time is a good solution, right? A good marketing campaign to study on that. So how do we get our people downtown and expect them to hit breakfast at Wooden Chair, lunch at Goose, shop at, I don't know, is there like 50 shops down, 60 shops right on Main Street, the Main Street version side of them. But on our bottom of every piece of marketing we better put on there, plan your day well. You only get 2 hours in downtown Point. It needs to be 4 hours.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the audience? Sure, take your time.
My name is Laura DeSalvo, and I own Kindred Spirit Books, and I've been there for 28 years. I have never parked on Main Street when I'm coming to work. I don't know why anybody would do that, because it would take the place of a customer. It's not that hard. And the reason that my husband drops me off is so that there's more parking for people. It's just flabbergasting to me that people would. Somebody pointed out that they have their workers park so that other people can't park in front of their. That's just crazy. So all I want to say is, please don't park on Main Street so customers can. And 2 or 4 hours. 4 hours would be nice, but 2 hours is fine too. I mean, how long does it take you to do that? Unless you're, eating with a group, or I don't know how long it takes to get your hair done, but. That's really all I wanted to say is, please don't park downtown. I mean, on Main Street. Downtown, I can, when I do park in those rare occasions, I park behind my building. It's not that tough. It's really a short little walk. So.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in the audience? Anyone online? Anything else from the committee? Yes, Mayor.
So first and foremost, I want to thank Lieutenant Joe Johnson for being here. Worked all day, and then I forced him to come to the meeting. Lieutenant Johnson is kind of in charge of parking and parking enforcement, and I wanted him to be here as a resource and to hear the concerns to try and find a solution. If the committee would want to direct staff to change the 2-hour parking restriction to 4 hours so you could consider it next week, we could, because as Tara mentioned, we're coming into the busy season. My big concern would be rushing it and not everybody necessarily being able to weigh in that wanted to. I did talk to the executive director of the bid, Chloe Cruiser. She put out 2 emails to the email list that she has, reminding them of the meeting and what was going to be discussed. So we can reasonably assume that people were notified, but that doesn't mean they were. But it's up to the board here to figure that out. So just keep that in mind if we move things a little too quickly.
I would like to give businesses and residents downtown a chance to respond. And again, I see the point of, 2 hours is not enough for some people. You're taking your kids to the Children's Museum, you want to stay longer. You're doing multiple things downtown. You're going to the library, you're going somewhere else. That said, there are people that just need to run in somewhere real quick and drop something off, and it is nice to just, for example, the library has 15-minute parking stalls, really close to the entrance. So I guess to be responsive to the bid board and those businesses, I would like to see something move forward, but I think we do need more information. And I agree with Alder Christensen that maybe an incremental approach is best. I don't see a problem with some 4-hour parking. Do all the spots need to be 4? I don't know. If there's huge support among the business community for that and the residents downtown, I guess I don't have a huge problem with that. Can we bring this back? We're in May now, to our June meeting with some possible recommendations from staff and the bid board on first steps towards some policy changes, whether that's revisiting the reparking situation that may allow people to repark, creating, different spots with different times. I guess be curious to see.
So the repark right now, we're restricted by software. So the software, the license plate reader, can't tell if I'm in this spot or one spot over. It's not that refined. We could probably buy something, but that's going to be crazy expensive. So with the license plate reader, the no repark is kind of something that we have to be restricted on now, simply because the technology doesn't have the ability. We can change it to 4 hours.
Sure.
If you'd like to do that, but the repark thing kind of has to stay for now.
Okay.
Just because we're limited by our technology. Or we go back to chalking tires. Nobody wants to do that.
I guess, just to reach out to the bid board, is 4 weeks too long? Is that to bring this back to the committee with
Tara,
more formal actions?
Nobody who's watching at home or listening later can hear if you're not in front of a microphone. So I would not be opposed to having a special meeting earlier in June if we needed to.
So what, you're saying what, in 4 weeks?
If we bring this back to this committee in 4 weeks at our next meeting, which would be the second second Monday of the month, with more formal recommendations from your bid or area business.
I think that's fair. I would argue, we want to do something sooner rather than later. We are going to have Notes at Night starting and various other events, so we just want to make sure that we address this. I was also just going to say that the 2 to 4, it doesn't fix the no repark, but it helps.
Sure.
I don't think we would, I'm just trying to process. I don't know that it would be wise to do some spots, because I think you'd have to make it just on Main Street or the square, those areas. But then we go back to signage and how I think we have to make it fairly universal in the area.
Sure.
Yeah. And honestly, if this is something that we try and it doesn't work, we can revisit it. And so.
And as a possible solution, I'm going to keep one eye on Lieutenant Johnson. But because like Notes at Night is a special event, if it was requested from the bid board, whoever's putting on Notes at Night, to say, boy, we'd really, I mean, that doesn't happen until 6 o'clock anyway, and the 2 hours only until 5. But if there was a special event, let's say during the day, Discover Downtown, you could ask for no enforcement.
Right.
And we have the ability for special events to just not enforce that.
Yes, that is true.
So we could live with that until then, until the change happens.
Yeah, and this really does affect more of the day-to-day, right? I'll just briefly use my store as an example. When somebody comes in, when a couple comes in for a suit consultation, they can get close to 2 hours. There is no more time for them to grab lunch anywhere.
Sure.
That time is gone. And that happens more often than not. And they will leave the downtown area. So just to give, a more specific example of why it is, in my opinion, necessary to address, just because we want downtown to be the place that people come.
And if you could, Tara, suggest to the bid board the kiosk or paid parking, because that would only happen until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. But I think that would give a lot of people the flexibility to park for 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, but that would also inhibit tenants and employees from parking there, because now you're paying an extra $10 a day for parking, and the business owners can still, I'll give you $2 off of your purchase because you were here for 3 hours or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Bring it up at least.
I absolutely will, and I'm not opposed to exploring options like that. My concern is those take time, and right now we need at least a solution for now. And the other part of this is the business owners, not all of them have a location for parking for themselves. I will say Lieutenant Johnson he's amazing. Like, every time I call, you're so responsive, and you're just great to work with. But there are some parking lots that we have access to. The one across the street from my store, as an example, I have a really hard time getting a hold of a parking permit because there are people down the street that purchase all of them as fast as they can. And they're, down the street. I have one or two. I'd prefer two, one for myself and one for an employee, but even just one. And to keep it, I pretty much have to plan on being up at midnight when that thing expires, because it will be gone. I mean, like that. So that and again, this is it's not a right now solution, but if we could help business owners find that additional parking, that could help the problem too. But yeah, right now, the most immediate would be the changing 2 hours to 4 hours to allow people a little bit more time to spend in our downtown and ultimately walk into Laura's store or go to the Wooden Chair or Graffiti's. We want them to be downtown and go in as many doors as they can without feeling like they've got to hurry up to move their car, of all things.
When is the next bid board meeting? Is it scheduled?
Tomorrow.
Mark?
Tomorrow.
No. Oh, that's a special meeting.
It's a special meeting tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
When is the next one?
I know.
It's not on the agenda. Okay.
Tuesday, June 3rd is the next official bid board meeting.
Okay.
Not to say we couldn't do a special for that too. So many special meetings, right, Mark?
Alder Christensen, are you getting up to speak? Sure. Okay, I think we have another speaker. Okay. Sir?
So, Craig Schuler, Dan's Drive, Stevens Point. I also own the Mission Coffee downtown, which I didn't mention before, so I've got a horse of that race now too. And so I've been helping, sitting on the marketing committee, and we put a lot of effort and time into things to promote downtown. Come spend a half a day downtown, come do this, right? And it involves, in every case, doing more than one thing. But 2 hours really kind of limits you to doing one thing. So to support the things that we're really trying to do to build downtown, 4-hour parking would be a real simple thing to get done right now and just make it happen. So,
okay.
Thank you,
sir. All right, Alder Christensen.
Yep. I think real quickly, I just echo those same sentiments. I do think that's the simplest, and it is also, like I mentioned earlier, probably the one thing that I didn't have anybody speak against that idea. That was pretty much universally supported. A lot of the hair salons, like if I wanted to curl my hair and color it.
They're making the money on you.
But yeah, they can do it in 4 minutes, but they have to find them first, so that's the hard part. But I can understand there's a number of businesses and the restaurants and everything else. The 4 hours just does. So I guess I would encourage this group to make that change and then allow more conversations to take place on the other issues.
Okay, and I assume that any decision we made tonight would be a recommendation to council and would be discussed next Monday.
Yes, but I would encourage you to get some sort of official documentation from in this case, the bid or the bid board, before recommending the change, because right now they haven't even voted on it.
Sure.
Let alone talk to all of the businesses. So I would encourage you to just ask for documentation from the bid board before making any decision. I agree, it's fine.
Okay.
But let's make sure we get everybody in, right? It's just a multifaceted problem, just like the last one, with a multifaceted solution. We want to make sure everybody gets to chime in.
All right, what are the recommendations from the committee?
I would move to extend parking 4 hours to 4 hours with some form of documentation from the bid board, whether it be sign off, approval, but their approval with that.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
All right, second by Burr. Any other comments or discussion?
And hopefully the bid board can get together and do that, or maybe the board president. You don't need a quorum necessarily if this was thoroughly discussed.
All right, last call, Alder Christensen.
I do think it's possible because there were a group of 3 of us that were authorized to send a letter to request it to be considered, so we could do that as part of that letter.
Okay. And again, this recommendation, should it pass, will be a advisory to council's approval next Monday. So we do have a motion, and we have a first by Boozy and a second by Burr. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes, and we'll go to council next Monday. And with that, we are adjourned. This is the longest public policy meeting.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.